Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, to Let's Meet. We have hopefully a really, really informative interview today with our guest, Benjamin Addy. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just really going to give you a little bit of a background and welcome you in. Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the time out. And then we'll be able to actually get right in there and stuck in to getting to the depths of this conversation about love, about loss, about family, and most of all about hope. So thank you again for coming. When you come into the chat, do kindly let us know where you're watching in from and let me know who's in the room as well. Continue to share this post out. Don't forget to like the stream so that more and more people can see it. And that would be really, really great and helpful to be able to get this story out there, to be able to inspire others to move forward and take steps forward into their positive journey ahead. So we're going to kick off, and we are expecting our guest imminently. And really, just to give you a little bit of a summary, Mr. Benjamin Addy was born and raised in Tema, Ghana. And he was one of 9 to Christian parents and grew up in a Christian home. He studied, he traveled the world, he lived in Canada, in the UK, and then traveled back to Ghana to work for 10 years. And that's when he met the love of his life, Evelyn. Evelyn was born in the UK and went to school in the UK, but also went back to Ghana, and that's where she met Benjamin, or Mr. Addy. Unfortunately, the unthinkable happened, and Evelyn died, leaving Benjamin with, a piece of his heart broken and the role of comforting his 2 young children. But despite this, he was convicted that he was going to raise his children himself, and decided to travel back to the UK after the funeral to start his journey as a lone parent. So we're really looking forward to hearing about this story of love, of grief, of loss, of family, but most of all of hope. And I think that's the key that we want to get out of this as well, is overcoming adversities and becoming a stronger person as a result of it. So I know he's got a lot to share with us and a lot to say. So make sure you put in the comments sections if you have any questions throughout the chat that you would like him to answer. And once I see them, then I'll be able to pass that along to him as well to answer that for us. But once again, thank you for joining me here on Let's Meet. And our guest today is Mr. Benjamin Addy. So let's invite him in here. Hello, Mr. Addy. How are you?
I'm good. And you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
You're okay to call me Ben.
Sharp. Pardon?
You're okay to call me Ben.
Okay, I will call you Ben. Hello, Ben. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm good.
I hope I did your sort of mini introduction justice. I know that you're a multifaceted man, and there's just so much that you've done in your life, including starting and owning a company in Ghana that dealt with cargo. And studying in different parts of the world and living in different parts of the world as well. So there is a lot to you. But one thing I would like you, just to get us, kicked off and to allow the viewers to find out who you are, is I'd like you to complete this sentence. I am a person who.
I'm a child of God who was born and raised in a Christian family, as you started in your presentation. And I was raised with Christian values. What my parents taught me to know was always to be humble, putting God first in all that I do. And that is what has shaped my life all through my journey of life. My dad was very family oriented, and what I can remember of him is that he always put God first in all that he did. So I believe I've carried on that tradition in my journey of life as well, putting God first in all that I do, and also putting my family second. So my God first and my family second in all that I do. And that is what has brought me this far in life.
Thank you for that. I think in life, it's really important to know who we are and our values and what we really stand for, and look at the character, because a lot of times in society, we identify people by, let's say, their job or what they do or what they've achieved in life. And that's why I asked you that question first of all. I'm a person who, it's really just to highlight the fact that what's really important in life is the character of a person, the values of a person. So, I mean, where would you say that your family obviously is part of that, has formed your character and your values? Are there any other sort of things in life that have, given you that character and value rooting?
I think in life you have your primary influences and you also have your secondary influences. So primarily, yes, as I alluded to, my extended family and my Christian walk. And I'd say that has taught me to be patient. It's taught me to be tolerant. It's taught me to be kind. It's taught me to be caring. And it's taught me to be loving. And not just loving people around me, but loving all, And that's what I'd say has shaped my personality, really.
That's really sort of good to hear. So you're a man who loves,
Yes.
and I think the fact that you've taken time out of your schedule and your family time to be able to come and share your experiences with the rest of the world is testament to that as well. Because a lot of times, there are people who are going through things, and we've all gone through different things in our lives. But the fact that you've taken time out to show what's happened to you and how that it's affected you, how you've been able to get through, in the hope that it could help somebody else, is really great. So thank you. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, pleasure.
So I'm just going to bring up a picture here, and I'd like you really to give me some context as to what this means to you, and just talk a little bit about this picture.
Right, in that picture is my mum and dad. This would be a wedding picture from when they got married in the UK. So I know my dad was on assignment from Ghana, and I think he was posted to the UK at the time. And I believe they got married somewhere in Manchester at the time. Yeah. So yeah, they are deceased, but I still hold them, they hold a very special place in my heart as parents, because by the grace of God, I was born into a home where I was guaranteed a roof over my head all through, and there was food on the table, and they give us a very warm, caring, and loving home environment, and for that, I'm very grateful to have them as parents.
That's wonderful. So they got married in the UK. Why were they in the UK from Ghana?
I believe my dad was, he was on transfer, I believe, from Ghana to the UK at the time, which was work related. So whilst they were in the UK, I think they got married then. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! I'm just trying to look for the resemblance there between either your mum and dad, who you take after.
Yeah.
So can you
Very
tell us
lovely.
more about your childhood in terms of one of nine? Was that from both of your parents, or how you've got quite a few siblings? Can you just tell us a bit about that?
Okay, so I was a product of a blended family. My late father was married, and unfortunately, he lost his wife as well. And from that, there were three boys, and then my mom was separated from her husband then, so she had two girls. And from when they merged that family, there was five, and then from that five, then came another set of four, which was that'll be myself and two other brothers and a sister. So that brought nine people together. So our set of four was maternal and paternal. Okay, so my dad had three boys, my mom had two girls, and then from the new union came an additional four, making it nine. So it was a three-tier system, if you like,
System.
you know.
Three-tier system.
So, it was a blended family, but a three-way blended family. Yeah. So, because my dad had two. Sorry, my dad had three. My mom had two, and then my mom and dad had four.
Fantastic.
Okay.
And
So
you were part of the three from your dad, is that correct?
no, I was part
From the
of
four.
the four. So I'm maternal and paternal.
I see.
So
I see.
yeah.
And how did your parents deal with that element of having a blended family and the siblings? What are your memories of your childhood, if you were to summarize your childhood?
Okay, I would say that it was good. It was a very it had its challenges, I'd say, like in any other family, you know, because I came around where there were older children, you know,
Yeah.
so I was young and growing up, and you know, the house was always crowded, you know, like if I say crowded, it was, you know, there was always someone in the house.
Yes.
I never came back from school to an empty house, ever. There was always someone at home. And in those days, in Ghana, we practiced the extended family system. So my mom had relations who were around, and you know, they always made sure that we were well taken care of. And you know, so if my mom wasn't around, she didn't have to like, you know, worry that, you know, we would not be fed and all the rest of it. It was good. It was good, and I'm glad that my parents provided a very stable, a very warm, a very caring and loving environment for all of us as children. Even though, you know, we're a blended family, we got along reasonably well. We had our ups and downs, like any other family, but you know, we had a real strong bond amongst us.
That's really great to hear. We just had a message here from Emmanuel Charles, who said, Ben Addy is a strong-hearted gentleman and father and very religious. He's my unseen mentor and a role model to our young generation. Bless up, Ben, and wins. So just thought I'd post that up there. So that's quite interesting, the fact that you are in a blended family now and your father and mother also made a blended family work for them. Growing up as well in a faith-based environment, as you say, was also part of your journey. So let's just fast forward now to your adult years when you were leaving Ghana. What was that experience for you like? Why did you choose to travel abroad?
I think looking back on it, uh, primarily was to further my education, and I did not come to live in the UK indefinitely. It was for a period and then to return. So yeah, I think the main reason was to just further my education. And I suppose in those days there was some kind of a trend where, due to political instability and economic, you know, difficulties, a lot of people were leaving Ghana at the time. Okay, um, in those days we had a lot of post-independence. There was a lot of military uh, government, you know, running the country. Um, and then much later, of course, we went into democratic rule. So those days were very challenging. So yeah, there was a trend of a lot of people leaving the country. Some went into exile, and so yeah, you know, I came
So you
primarily to
you
further
were
my
part
education.
of the exodus.
Oh yes, it was, yes, part of the exodus. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to put
So
it that
then
way, yeah.
you left the Ghana to the UK, and you spent some time there, as well as
Mm.
traveling across the ocean to Canada as well, I believe.
That's correct. Yes, I
Canada.
lived in Victoria Island in Canada, near Vancouver.
Okay. And so, what was it then that brought you back to your homeland of Ghana?
As a person, I've always felt very drawn to Ghana, with a belief that there is no place like home.
Yes.
Okay, I've known that comparatively, if you're comparing a country like Ghana to England in terms of, you know, development, um, in a way, you know, obviously they're not comparable. Okay, notwithstanding that, I have a belief that even if I were to go back to Ghana and I lived in a village with no running water, no electric or anything of the sort, what will matter to me will be my peace of mind, happiness, comfort. And the one thing that I find very admirable about the people of Ghana is that they're very engaging people. Okay, there's a communal existence. I remember on the road that I grew up in Ghana, okay, all the neighbors knew each other. You could literally go into anyone's home, okay? And I remember that there was one interesting thing though, like everyone on the road was like the wives, they were all like wedded wives. Mrs. This, Mr. That's wheels, you could address, the ladies, or Mrs. something, And if say I was seen down the road, wandering off, my parents' neighbor would just like, get a hold of me and bring me back home and things like that. And, there was that communal existence, and a communal engagement, which you probably find that you don't get it in the Western world. There's a disconnect, with neighbors as compared to like back home in the way that we have it. So, yeah, so I kind of miss that, and I have always felt drawn to like, I want to go back to my country. Living abroad is not for everyone, but it's for some people, those who prefer to live abroad. But as a person, regardless of how underdeveloped Ghana is, I've always felt that there is no place like home.
Yeah. So that's what took you then back to Ghana to work there for 10 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that you've been able to start your own company. You started your own company when you went back. You worked in the family business for a while before starting your own freight company, and you went into shipping. Now, leaving all of that aside, because those are wonderful and great achievements, we really, really want to get into the story and understand how you met your late wife, Evelyn. How did that come about? Because she was born in the UK and studied in the UK. How did you both meet in Ghana at that time?
That was an interesting experience. Actually, I was hanging out with some friends one day, and as we got talking, one of them said to me, "Ben, you lived in Canada, right?" I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "There's a lady that is over from Canada that I think you should meet." I'm like, "Okay." And she, he told me a few more things. Okay. So anyway, he arranged and we went to visit the lady. This lady um, was in Ghana on assignment. Um, she worked with the Canadian International Development Agency, okay, to do with some programs that I think the Canadian Embassy was, involved in and all that. So as we got talking and everything like that, and I every once in a while we'd come by and visit. And one of my friends that I was with when we were going back there, I think the next time, told me that, do I remember my late wife's family, because I knew of the family anyway, I'm like, oh yeah, I do. And it's like, yeah, Evelyn, that'll be Evelyn's mom. She lives close by. And so, we should pop in and say hi, because he was a neighbor of theirs. So we went and we, Evelyn was around and we got talking, and then, that's how we became acquainted. Then eventually we became friends, and eventually we became an item. So yeah, that's how the relationship started. So yeah, I knew of the family at the time, because in those days, most of the families were known. My family was known, her family was known. Yeah.
So you knew that,
But
actually being with someone from her family, there wasn't really that much catching up in terms of you came from the same value set. You had the same sort of upbringing in terms of how your parents would have raised you. So it was really just catching up to find out who you were as individuals rather than whether your values were aligned. Would that be correct?
Interestingly, what I remember, there was a cultural practice back in the olden days, and perhaps this is very obsolete now. If the traditional marriages, back home tends to take precedence over even the wedded, formal marriages. So and that was deemed, a marriage of families. So if you're looking to marry someone, they had a practice where they would do a due diligence, where they would want to establish the background of not just the person, but the person's family. But that was a very fundamental requirement in coming to a decision as to, the parents giving their consent and blessing to the marriage. And so, just knowing that she was a member of the family, for me, was like 50% tick. Okay. In the sense that my late wife's family came from a very distinguished and respectable, background. Okay. So, I'm not talking about distinguished or, not wealth per se, but they had a good name, and they say, yes, a good name is better than riches. Okay. So when my friend said, "Oh, do you remember, Captain Edubofor? He was with the Ghana Armed Forces, yeah." And Mrs. Edubofor said, "Oh yeah," because he had passed by this time. So I'm like, "Oh right, I know the family very well, but not had like close dealings with." So just knowing that was, like I said, 50% tick, Then of course, when I met Evelyn, she was UK biased, and she was a very contemporary person. She carried herself in a very respectful manner, very decent, and so we got along like a house on fire, so which was amazing, yeah.
That's always a bonus, isn't it? When your families
Absolutely,
like each other,
absolutely.
you both like each other, you've got the same understanding because you've both traveled and you've been abroad as well. So the same sort of perception. So
Yeah.
can you just describe to me, because we know that you ended up getting married and all of that. Can you just take time to describe and tell us a little bit about Evelyn? What kind of person was she?
Evelyn was someone who put God first in all she does. She lived and breathed God. And that was amazing. She was very humble, very kind, very considerate, and very caring. She was someone who would put others first before her. And so that for me was very admirable. And those were a list of, but not exhaustive, of the things that really drew me to her. She was really, really an amazing person.
And I mean, I can tell the emotions in, when you're talking about her. What are the feelings that are conjured up when you actually remember who she was and the spirit that she carried around with her? What do you feel in this present day as of today?
It's a very, very hard thing to do. If I have to visit the issue of her loss, Evelyn had things that I found out that Evelyn, she had a specialist condition, which perhaps I can share that. She was hypertensive, and over a period of time, I know that she was not doing very well. But then on the outside of Evelyn, she was very fit. Okay. So she looked deceptively healthy. But then, with time, when we came to the UK, I think we went to register at the GPs, and when they took her blood pressure, they realized that her pressure was excessively high. So they took a decision to investigate and establish the facts, and that's when they realized that she had a renal and a cardiovascular condition. So that probably would explain why her pressure was going too high. And post-pregnancy, she has some reproductive health issues as well. So, she suffered from what you call pregnancy-induced hypertension. So but then she was fine. You know, a week before she passed away, she was driving, you know. But then it was every so often she would try and have a chat with me about her health condition, but I couldn't bring myself to speak to her about it. I didn't have the courage to speak to her about it, and regrettably, because I was, you know, making a connection between her condition and, you know, the obvious. But I think going through some of our stuff, I came across some documentation which indicated that her condition was quite serious from the National Health Service. And Evelyn did not show me this paperwork, you know, because I think she realized that I was struggling to deal with it, you know. But the one thing that I take out of the experience is that as a Christian in this life and on this earth, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. And if God was to come today, or, you know, you left the face of the earth, where would you be going? Are you saved? And what legacy would you leave behind? So if it's the man that's gone, you know, what situation are you going to find, you know, with your wife and children being when you're not there, you know? So time is very precious. You know, make sure that with every day that God has blessed you with, you put it to the best use, okay? Because nobody knows tomorrow. And also love your loved ones excessively, you know, just go overboard. I loved Evelyn very dearly. You know, she was my best friend. In fact, I overloved her. But if I knew that she was going to leave us, say if I had my life all over again, I would have loved her a billion times more.
That's really powerful, and that's really impactful. I think it's just really difficult for anyone to come to terms with the fact that they could be losing someone. How that denial process, can you just really go a little bit further into, because there might be some people that are in that situation or maybe have experienced it themselves and they haven't really reflected on it. How did that denial present itself in you?
I think maybe, say, looking at it hypothetically, if, say, Evelyn went through a period where she was hospitalized and, you know, we're in and out of, you know, hospital, you know, I had to be looking, you know, after Evelyn and looking after the children. I don't know. That is one scenario, but then that would prepare me for what was to come. Because I remember this lady telling me on the day that she passed away, she said, thank God it happened this way, very sudden, that's it. Okay, no signs whatsoever. What if, you know, she was in hospital for a long time, you know, and you had to be dealing with that, okay? But that meant we would have lost the companionship of Evelyn at a much earlier stage. But this way, you know, we had her fit and able and actively involved, you know, with us, you know. I
Yes.
think 2 weeks before she passed away, we took a day trip out to the Volta Lake. There's a resort that we go to that we enjoy doing very much. Yeah, and there were no signs whatsoever.
Yes.
Okay, but all that happened was, you know, the morning she passed away, she woke me up early hours of the morning, and she said, she asked me, you know, whether we could pray, you know, and I don't know, I think I fell asleep, but then she woke me up again around 6 a.m. and she said, can we pray? Anyway, it was standard for us to pray in the morning, you know. And then, you know, unfortunately, she collapsed and passed away, you know, next to our daughter, Vonda.
Oh, dear.
In the state that we lived in Ghana, you know, the security guard came to me, you know, and I was talking to him at the gate, you know, and I heard my daughter scream. And by the time that I got to her, she was there sprawled on the floor. And that was like the worst experience of my life. And especially for the children to have witnessed that, that was emotionally very traumatizing for them. And I remember for about, I think 3 or 4 days, I hadn't told the children. I couldn't just bring myself around to telling them because I didn't know what emotional and mental harm it was going to do to them. And I remember where they went to school in East Airport International, not too far from where we lived. The head teacher did not know that I hadn't told them, So she said she saw Vaughn, and Vaughn he wasn't having a very good day, given what had happened. But in talking to Vaughn, it dawned on her that Vaughn had not been told. So God just held her in place, even though she would have told Vaughn, or spoken to Vaughn about it at least, And the irony of that was that head teacher went to the same school as Evelyn.
Oh, wow. So
yeah,
she
but
knew
then,
her person.
she did not recognize Evelyn when she saw Evelyn, at the school. Because Evelyn took the kids to the school the first day, even though they were coming from England, they weren't just going to admit them to the school. You have to sit this entrance exams before you be admitted. So she said it dawned on her that, she'd seen Evelyn somewhere, but she couldn't place her. So yeah, it was I'd say for me as a person, that's the worst thing that has happened to me on this earth so far. And it's like my most turbulent experience, I wouldn't want to wish that on my enemy. It depends. I suppose for bereavement, it depends on how close you are to the person. So Evelyn wasn't just my spouse; she was my best friend as well. So we were super, super, super close. Yeah. So
And
it was a very.
How old was your daughter when this happened?
So Vonda was 8 years old, and Vaughn was 11 years old.
Okay, so she was at the age where she could, understand what was happening as well.
Yeah. Yes, they were.
So, and then can you just summarize the event straight after that? Because you've come over from England, you've gone to Ghana, and suddenly, although the signs were there, but you were, as you said, in denial. So you weren't accepting the possibility that something as terrific, as horrific as this could happen. And it happens. So what were your, emotional state, and then practically as well, what were the steps that you took straight after that?
I think the first thing for me was the children. The children need the best environment they could have to heal. And I felt that perhaps being in the house in Ghana would have been too much of a reminder, for the children to bear, and bringing them back to England and putting them back in the schools where they were, seeing their old friends would help them heal. So, yeah, the children were getting phone calls from their friends in England. It was amazing. Evelyn's close friends were calling. Evelyn had 2 friends who were her best friends from her childhood, from when she came from England to Ghana. And there's a lady who she's in America now. Her name is Jessie. Well, the children call it Aunt Jess. She called, and I know she spoke to the children. And there's another one, Samantha. So Jessie Adams and Samantha Bentel, whom Evelyn had spoken about very, fondly, and they'd lost touch. They were in touch, and those calls that they made to us, just hearing from Evelyn's 2 best friends,
Yes.
back then, it made a great difference, and God bless them. I know Samantha lives here in England. She came from England as well, just like Evelyn. And Jessie, as I said, lives in America now. They were just amazing. So to Samantha Bentel and Jessie Adams, Evelyn's 2 best friends, God bless you. And to say that I'm very grateful for the care, the love, and the support that you showed in those very difficult times. I was in my darkest, moments, and and all the other people who are around us, who had shown all the love, the care, the affection, and the support. It made all the difference. It made all the difference.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because you, from the other side of it, when you know someone who's lost someone, I mean, what would you say to them in terms of what do you say? If you're in a situation where someone has lost a child or lost a partner, talking from your side of the coin, as in someone who actually lost your partner, what would you encourage friends, family members to say, or what could they do to help support that person who's grieving?
I think you have to let yourself grieve naturally. Don't switch off. What has kept me going is remembering the beautiful experiences that we had as a couple and as a family. So I don't remember the negative things. I remember the positives, okay? And always kind of think about, if Evelyn was here, what would she say? What would she, you know? So Evelyn would like me to put the children first, okay? And shower them with all the love and the care and the affection, which her and I were doing. Okay, so nothing changed from then. You know,
Yes.
I remember working in Ghana. When I left the office, I'd go straight home. Okay, and if I was going to be late, I'd call and say I was going to be late. Nothing changed from when she left. Okay, um, new people, new experiences. I didn't want to go back to the old church where we worshipped in Top Bay. So we found ourselves a new church by the grace of God, Southern Christian Fellowship here in Southend. And I remember when I met the resident pastor, Mr. Peter Burgess, a very great man. One of the things that he said to me was, new experiences, helps the healing process. Okay.
Mm.
So I joined what we call a house group where, you go and, study the Bible. I did it, I think, once a week. Yeah. And just that time with God, just because initially, I did not go to church for about a month. I think I felt kind of wanting to be away from God. It was very bizarre, because in our trials and tribulations, we should run to God and not the opposite direction. But then I think one day I felt God tell me that, hey, it's time to go back and worship. And God pointed out a building to me. Okay, and that was the Southern Christian Fellowship. I've driven past this building so many times, and that church family was amazing. They have played a fundamental part in the children and I healing. Through the spiritual healing comes the physical healing. Yeah.
Yes.
Through the spiritual healing comes the physical. So don't forget, for a period, right, you feel like you're in a transcendent state, okay? Because when you're joined together as one, as a couple, okay, in marriage, you're one. But then the half of you has gone to the other side, the spiritual world, okay? So it's like you're airborne, like you're here but you're not there, kind of thing. You see the world in a different light. It's like you're in a house, but the roof has been taken off.
Mm.
Okay, and as I said, I'm sure there are variations because it depends on how close you are to the person. And I was super close to Evelyn, so I felt the pain in a way that was just beyond description in words. Okay, that it was something else, and I wouldn't want to wish that on my enemy. And when I said some, I had some kind of weird thoughts going through my mind, and I'll give you an example of that, which is like if I knew that if I marry someone, obviously becoming close, and you're going to lose the person, and you have to suffer like this, then I won't want to put myself through that. Okay. Um, I have no regrets marrying Evelyn. I mean, it was just a pain process, and the expressions of that, pain. It was hard going, but coming this far, I'll say it's been God that's given us the strength to go through it, and just being around people of God, very loving and caring people through Southern Christian Fellowship has made all the difference. Okay, it's made all the difference in that spiritual healing. And I remember there was a day I was going to go pick Vonda from school.
Your daughter?
My daughter, yeah. And I was saying to myself, well, okay, now Evelyn is not there. So if, there was an emergency and they needed to call someone, I need to put some names on the school list so they can get in touch with, others. Just as I was pondering over that in my mind, I got this call, right, from this lady who goes to our church, okay? Her name is Betty, and she's like, Ben, if I was thinking about you and the children, and I'm like, if ever, because, you needed someone to pick the children just in case you're not be able to make it, right? I'll be on hand because my daughter goes to the school as well, okay? And I was thinking in my private thoughts, and the phone call coincided with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, well, Father God, So God just kept bringing situations, because you've got the emotional and mental side of it. You've got the physiological needs as well. Okay. Just coming back and resettling the kids. And I remember we went to the school, and I was assured that Vonda had a place in the school.
Is this in England?
Yeah, in England. So, because I spoke to them from Ghana.
Okay.
So by the time that we arrived at the school to put her back in the school, there was a lady that came from the office and told me that, oh, so sorry, Vonda has lost her place, because we waited and waited and waited. And I'm like, I could not believe it. I just sat there quiet and didn't know what to do. So we're about to leave, and this other lady came, she just came from a different office, and says, where are you going? No, stay there. And in the presence of the lady who spoke to us, okay, the lady said to her, no, it's all, she's finished with us. And she says, no. She said, Ben, Vonda has a place, okay? She starts back. And so there was this, within a matter of minutes, there was this contradictory thing, But I got the impression the other lady that came from, she had a higher position in the school.
Okay.
So she took a decision, that basically superseded the first decision.
Yes.
And so Vonda was able to get a place back at the school. And I remember...
Why do you think she did that?
It's God. It was God. Because an administrative decision had been taken that she'd lost her place. And then someone came and took a decision that, overrode that decision.
Yes.
And so Vonda went back to the school. And I remember one day Vonda came to me and says, oh, there is an opening to become the head prefect of the school. And you know what? I took it with a pinch of salt, okay? And I just kind of wasn't showing any interest in it. And every so often Vonda would come to me, she would come and show me a draft, thing that she's done, because you have to do some kind of a representation of how, if given the role, what you're going to do, and so on and so forth. And again, I didn't pay much attention to it. And she brought me a second and a third draft. And then one day, Dad, guess what? I've been shortlisted, okay, for the position of the head, prefect for the whole school. I'm like, whoa. So she showed me the letter. Then I took a very serious view of it from that point. And then one day she said, Dad, guess what? Today's my interview. We prayed and everything. She went to school. And I think the next week or so, she came back and Dad, guess what? I did not get the position to become the head prefect for the whole school. However, I'm the deputy for the prefect for the whole school. So she was successful.
Yes.
From the person who did not, she wasn't going to be admitted back in the school to become the deputy head girl for the whole school. And Vaughn, he's very
Yes,
passionate about football. My son, yeah, he's very passionate about football. I remember through Southern Christian Fellowship, the church, they have a football league table for all the churches in Southend. And Vaughn joined, and I used to go with him on Saturdays, to go football training, and I realized that Vaughn had a talent, I'm like, well, that's amazing. And then every so often there'll be a league match, and Vaughn will be the one that scores the most goals. Anytime that there was a match with another church, youth football league, team, and I'm like, whoa, Father God, this is amazing. And eventually I got Vonda started gymnastics. So my Saturdays was, shuffling between the two.
That's taxis.
Yeah, so, and sometimes it coincided, it was challenging. Vonda would be doing her gymnastics and Vonda would be doing his football. And yeah, and then, adjusting to the new role, going grocery shopping and cooking, with Evelyn and I, everything was gender neutral. So cooking and cleaning, and so stepping into that role made it easier.
Yes.
Of being the one to cook and clean and all the rest of it. But the one thing that I learned though, yeah, interestingly, Evelyn worked at Vonda's school, So I just thought I missed that bit. I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, so stepping into that role as a lone parent, initially I was very apprehensive about it. I'm like, well, how am I going to be able to cook? It's not something I've done before. But I'm like, you know what? I know God will be with me. And coming to England, cooking for me, like the English style of cooking and everything like that. Okay, so you go to the shop, you pick up things, throw it in the oven. Yeah, it's pretty much, it cooks itself. It's not like I remember back home.
You have to light the fire first.
Food preparation, it's like from scratch, Yeah, but I think in the midst of all that, I think it was also very important to make sure that the children was, they were eating fresh foods. And so, yeah, so they always had, they came home to like cook dinners. I didn't work for a while. I did some.
Take off.
Yeah, I had to take some time off to just sort of, get the children settled in. So I was out of work, I think, for about a year thereabout. Then I started to do some voluntary work at the church. Okay. Because I just wanted to be around God. And then eventually my first job back after that, I got a job with NatWest Bank.
Now, before you go into that, just ask you one question. So, sorry to take you back, but I just really want to find out, what was it that convicted you to lone parent? Because I'm sure, because Evelyn passed away, sadly, in Ghana, there would have been lots of options there for you, extended family. The culture there is that if you are a male, that you can carry on working and the children can be looked after by, somebody else in the community. And then obviously you'd come and visit them, they'd go and visit you. So what convicted you? What was it that drove you to say, do you know what, actually, this is what I need to do?
You know what, as a person, I've always put my family first. Well, God first, my family second. But in this regard, so the children, nothing was going to change from when Evelyn wasn't there, because we always put the children first, that we did. So my first reaction was the children, okay? They needed, if there was a time that they needed me, it was then. They needed me more than, because I was to be the father and the mother. Can you imagine if they've lost their mom suddenly, right? And then the father, is, they have limited contact with their father because of work commitments and things like that, right? So I spent a lot of time around them. So for me, my decision was I was going to, lone parent these children, okay, sharing them with all the love, the care, and the affection and support to help them in the healing process. It wasn't just, it was parenting out of love and not out of duty. Yeah. So children first, everything second,
Mm.
literally was my decision. And I'm sure parenting, you don't go to school for it, but it's something that Evelyn and I were doing already, So one of the things that I did with them was I'd go shopping with them, and I'll get them to choose what food they'd like themselves. So it wouldn't be just me imposing my will on them. And then, we unpack the bags and everything, when we come, and I assigned them, as they got older, by the way, I started to give them some chores around the house,
Okay.
so they're able to, put a wash on, in the washing machine, Hoover, and so on and so forth. So initially I was doing everything myself. And then eventually I've started to like bring them into try to equip them with life skills, because that's the one
Yes.
thing that I feel that if you're back home, I remember in Ghana, we went, most people went to boarding schools, and you were trained in a way that you were equipped with life skills, so that
Yes.
you could cope on your own. Yeah. So um, raising the children, it wasn't by myself, it was uncharted waters, but I looked upon the whole thing as a challenge. I'm like, given what they've been through emotionally and mentally, what, I'm going to be there for them. So long as I have breath in me, and I have the strength, and, by God's grace, and I'm going to put them first. Everything else will be second. Yeah.
That's very, very admirable. And it's great to see that they are, turning out to be children that are well-rounded because of the input and the sacrifice that you made. I mean, it's quite hard, especially in the UK, for people to take a year off work. Just with the way it is here in the UK. Did you have any, apart from the church family? Did you have any blood family that were here when you came back?
Okay. So one of my sisters, who is based there, she was on hand initially, and God bless her, Mina. She was cooking and bringing loads of different Ghanaian food, and that was really, really helpful at the time. I also had different people around who from the church also who were doing different things to help us throughout this very difficult time. So yeah, different people came on hand to assist in various ways. That made all the difference. I remember there was a time that I collapsed,
Oh,
and I was admitted. I was admitted for a week, and I think that was an eye-opening experience in the sense that um, in grieving Evelyn, I went for a long period of time when I wasn't eating.
mm,
Okay, so I was very nutritionally deficient, and to compound that whole experience, I wasn't sleeping as well,
okay.
and so one morning I collapsed. Unfortunately, I was ambulanced and admitted for a whole week. During this time, there were people that just rallied round in a way that was beautiful, and they all came from the church family. The pastor and his wife from Southern Christian Fellowship, Mr. and Mrs. Burgess, lovely, lovely Caucasian family. Um, they were on hand, and they were between Peter and Chrissy and a lady called Grace, a Ghanaian lady. Uh, they were just fantastic with the children. The children already knew them, okay, from
Yes.
church, okay. So it was easy for them to, they would have them, they took turns in having the children, and just being on admission and being undergoing treatment and being stabilized, and knowing that these people were taking care of the children made all the difference.
Gave you
Okay.
that sense of peace, a bit more peace.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I thank the Almighty God. And there was something else that I don't want to yeah, I did undergo some therapy which was arranged by the church actually. So I call it Christian counseling, if you like. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Um, and that was also very, very, very useful. The lady who administered the proceedings was a lady that knew Evelyn, you know, and I from a different church, you know, because we used to worship in Top Bay Baptist Church at the time. So that's where we met this lady, very lovely lady. Her name is Linda Saville. And then
She was a
when
Christian
she was,
counselor.
yes, she's a very strong Christian. So when the arrangement was made for me to go and have the counseling, I did not know, and she did not know that I was the one. We didn't know that we are going to like, and we had lost touch for a while, but we didn't know we were going to encounter each other under those circumstances, because you know they were, I think, one of three families that we became very close to when we worshipped there. I remember there was a lady, a Jamaican lady, Janice, a very lovely lady, who would build a very close relationship with her and her family, and then another couple, Richard and Candy Ajayi, a very lovely couple as well. Unfortunately, that lady's husband is late now. Yeah, it was seeing how people care and love. You know, in England, you know, most of the time people, you know, due to work commitments, you know, we don't have that kind of time that we have back home. And we, you know, people don't practice that, you know, extended family system as we do back home. Okay. But just seeing that people could make time and just be on hand to help. I remember a gentleman called Tim. Um, he would come and visit me in hospital, you know, if I needed anything. One time I had about 15 people around my bed in hospital, and it was just nice just to see
Wow.
all these people doing different things. I remember a guy called Dino and his wife. Dino is late now. You know, when I was discharged, you know, he said, "Look, Ben, you know, you've been discharged, but you haven't you know, fully recovered, and you can't be caring for the children." So, you know, Dino and his wife Jackie came to take the children for you know, a day trip somewhere, doing something fun. You know, she said, you know, I remember Jackie saying, "What would the children like to do?" I'm like, "Have a chat with them." So, you know, I think they took them to Peter Pan's, you know, along the seafront. You know, yeah, and everybody was very, very helpful. Betty and you know, her husband, and there was one other person who was amazing as well that I would like to mention, and that is Faith, who was there and just loving and caring for the children in various ways. You know, I
And who
think
is
we'll leave that
Faith?
one. So we'll come to that.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that.
We'll
I
come
kind
to
of have a
that.
clue. I kind of have a hint. But so now
We'll come
I
to
want
that.
to go into something slightly not serious, but something that um, I'd like to sort of talk to you about. So you're a person of faith, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
your faith played an important part in your recovery because you're connected with the church. You had people
Mhm.
around you. What advice would you give to somebody who was going through your situation, but they were not a person of faith, you know, or they're not a person of faith at this point in time? Who knows what will happen in the future? But can you give some, you know, some advice to somebody in that situation?
I think that as a person, you have to be convicted by the things around you, the events around you, that you know, we did not just emerge. We came from somewhere. And when our life ends, we must go somewhere. So what is the meaning and purpose of life? Okay. We have to ask ourselves a question, you know. You can live on this earth and say that I'm an atheist. I don't believe in anything. Okay. You can say I'm an agnostic. I believe that a God exists, but I don't practice. Or you have the option of saying that, you know, I'm going to believe. I'm going to believe because I believe in God. Okay. For me as a person, what I know is that you can be born into a Christian family and raised in that Christian environment. The day you leave home, it'll be a choice whether you want to continue that or not. Or you can be a nominal Christian. You know, you can just attend church every Sunday, sit, listen to the worship, you know, listen to the sermon and go home. and that's your contact with God. Or you have the choice to be a kingdom person leading an earthly life. Okay? You have a choice to be a kingdom person leading an earthly life. And like I said earlier, what you have to ask yourself is, if God were to come today, as in the rapture, where would you be going? Or if something happened and unfortunately you lost your life, where would you be going? And what legacy would you leave behind you? Okay. So for me, I'm glad that by the grace of the Almighty God, I was saved.
Yes.
Okay. I was saved. And it is God who gave me the direction and the strength to travel this journey. So the whole thing made me put my life into perspective and ask myself, where am I coming from? Okay. Where am I at and where am I headed? Okay. That without God, it wouldn't have been possible for us to come this far, as in myself and the children. So it is God that has made it possible. And in terms of my spiritual healing, and from that spiritual healing has come my physical healing. It's still, work in progress, but to a large extent, I'd say that, I've come out of the darkest area and I've come into the light.
Mm.
And, I thank the Almighty God for making this possible.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to sort of shift in a little while, just so that we can bring in the third phase of your life. So we've spoken about your history, then the love of Evelyn, her loss. Then we've spoken about your lone parenting and the challenges, the benefits of being able to actually have that one-to-one contact with your child, to see them grow up, to be able to impart into them the values and the characters that you want to put in them. And then we're going to move into the other stage, which you're currently in now, which is the blended family. But the point that I really wanted to get from that last question was, let's just imagine that you aren't a Christian, but you've been through those same experiences, which might be hard for you because you are and you have faith. But what advice, is there one single thing that you could say to a non-Christian, because they don't have that lens, they don't have that anchor to hold on to, maybe the word of God, or to be able to hold on to their faith? What piece of advice would you give that person that doesn't understand faith language, that doesn't believe in God? What would you say is the one thing that could help them going through a situation like this?
I'll say find God. Find God through Jesus Christ as soon as possible. Don't leave it too late. Don't be reliant on the world systems as it's been structured, because it's vanity. The day Evelyn left the face of the earth, she didn't take any material item with her. If you have £1 million in the bank, if you have 10 houses, is immaterial. Find God as soon as possible through Jesus Christ and have a walk with him. Learn about life beyond earth. Learn by getting yourself a Bible. Okay. Pray. Ask God to guide your steps towards salvation. Because ultimately, okay, you want to be saved. So your name will be in the book of life. Okay. Now, if you start, ponder and reflect, okay, and pray to God and say, and God would let the Holy Spirit take over. The Holy Spirit will direct you. Something will take you over. Okay. My decision to come back to England with the children, the strength to parent the children, the opportunity to bring me closer to the children has all been made possible by God. Because that is
Supernatural.
my firm belief. That is my firm belief.
Mm.
Okay. I am convicted in spirit that it is God that has made it possible. And it's a statement of fact. Okay, I know it is difficult for someone who is an atheist to understand it, but they cannot relate to it. Okay,
which was my yes.
Yeah. So I believe that step one will be to get a Bible and start reading, and let the Holy Spirit minister unto you.
So,
And I
so your
believe,
advice then would be for someone to actually seek out their spirituality, to start seeking, to actually start, taking those steps to finding out a bit more about their spiritual health, because we're not just a physical body. We've got
no,
our minds, we've got our spirit, we've got our soul. So it's tap into that part of it can help you to overcome grief and overcome pain and overcome loss. If you're able to tap into the spiritual side of yourself by seeking to actually to learn more about the spiritual side of things.
yeah.
Okay. And then the other last thing on this part of the show is, did you or do you have anything to say about, obviously we're living here in the UK, have anything to say about writing a will?
I think it's imperative that you write a will sooner rather than later. Okay, because nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Now, if you die interstate where you haven't left a will, I know the interstate succession law kicks in, and it goes from there. But it's better to be prepared than not to be prepared. Because some people procrastinate and they leave things. I know with some families, when a will has not been left, sometimes unfortunately it leads to a lot of conflict. But it's very important will is written. That I agree 100%. Yeah.
I think especially when there are children involved as well, because sometimes people, when they hear the word will, it kind of makes them think of death. Whereas, as you say, it's about preparing those that are left behind, letting them know what your wishes are. But particularly if you have children as well, it's really important, even from whatever age it is. If you have children in your 20s, from 20s, you can write your will. And then within that as well, a lot of the will packs will have information about what you want to happen to the children. If anything were to happen to you, do you want them to have a guardian? Who will be their guardian? Do you want them to live abroad? Do you want them to stay in the UK? Especially someone like yourself, Ben, coming from a different background. You've got Ghana connections, you've got the UK, and I know we're going to be moving on to speak to your lovely wife now, who's got connections in Uganda. Those types of things need to be written down, and it's one thing that I myself am passionate about, to encourage young people, especially young, old, to take advantage of this, of writing a will and letting people know your thoughts before anything happens, especially in this day and age that we're in as well, with the global situation right now. So now, thank you very much. And I mean, we've had some comments in here. Any questions for Mr. Addy, please put them in the comment section below. But I'll just highlight a comment that came through here. You were talking while it came through, so I don't think you actually saw that. But here we have a message here from Lawrence Nyanzi. Hi, Benjamin. Listening to your story is inspiring. You are a true role model.
Thank you.
And then we've had some people that I think may have known you from the past as well. So we've got here, may the good Lord continue to bless you and protect you for raising your children single-handedly. I'm not amazed, though, due to being raised by religious parents, so more wins. So okay. I think that, they're saying, you know who that is, do you?
Yeah, Emmanuel Charles is a very good childhood friend of mine who lives in the States now. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you so much, Emmanuel, for coming, and God bless you.
So, this is really, this whole show here is really about helping people to take one step forward, to move forward, to get to their better self, their future self, which they hope to be better. And you've gone through that journey in life where, you had marital bliss, you had the blessings of children, then, you went through a situation in life that really got you to reconsider your life and what was important in life and where you wanted your future to be headed. Hence, you made the decision to take your children and be child-centered to make sure that they were okay and they were emotionally stable, even though you neglected yourself and went through some health issues yourself. But I mean, being brave enough to acknowledge and to accept that help of counseling, to say, do you know what, things aren't right. And, you know, whether it's through counseling, whether it's through whatever means that a person needs to use to get back to their self and to get back to being able to function in life. You've demonstrated that actually it's okay to grab hold of that, whether you're a Christian or not. Grab hold of those resources available to you. So thank you for sharing that.
I'm just going to do my final submission, just an interjection if you like. There was something that during the process of, you know, going through the bereavement process, dawned on me about my life with Evelyn, which I was very happy about, was that God made it possible for us to be wedded. Okay. And as a Christian couple, because we were wedded, we were not living in sin, because I know the Bible speaks against that. So I thank the Almighty God for making it possible for me to honor Evelyn in that regard, and also for us to honor God, most importantly, that Evelyn and I were a wedded couple, you know, and, you know, is something that I just wanted to, you know, bring in as an addendum. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's great as well, that it's a testament to her, and sort of that you you know, have chosen to honor her in that way. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a message here from a person here called Dale, who has a message here for you, and then we are going to bring in the wonderful Faith Addy. He's got a message here. It says, please tell him, that's yourself, his nephew, Pastor Dale, said he did not know he went through all of this, and he's really sorry for all of this, and that you're here to help anytime you need help. So, I mean, the fact that people see you now, they don't realize what you have been through and the journey that you've been through to get to the you that they see now. Which is why I think it's really important to share stories, to share life experiences, because there's somebody else out there going through either something similar or something slightly different. And by hearing your story, that you can come through at the end, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There are certain things that you can do to aid that progress. You know, for example, counseling, you know, having faith has helped, having people around you. I think it's really important, and thank you for taking the time to do that. Really, really appreciate it, Mr. Addy. So now, can we move on? Can we move on now for the last 15 minutes? Can we move on to the next stage of your life? Because it's my understanding that just as your parents chose to have a blended family, you've also you've walked in their footsteps, and you met somebody else who you have now been wedded to. And can we kindly, first of all, can you kindly introduce your wife? And if you could come into the frame, then we could sort of have more of an introduction. Hello, Mrs. Addy. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So I would like to find out, you know, because it's one of these things that it's hard enough people, let's say when they're older in their life, to be able to find a life partner for the first time round. You know, some people meet at university, some people meet because of church or some other sort of group. But if you're working and if you've got a career and you've missed those opportunities, it's very hard for people to meet other like-minded people that they can say, yes, I want to start a family with, or I want to settle down with this person. How on earth did you manage to do it the second time around with children, being older, and you met each other? Can you sort of explain what that process was like of meeting each other and deciding to get married?
Okay. I think for I'll start with myself. Life can be difficult. Life can be busy. Life can be challenging. But one of the things that kept me going was remembering that God was always there with me in every situation. I do have an older son that I had whilst I was at uni, and things didn't work out with my ex, and I ended up being a single parent. So I was single parenting, but I also knew in doing that God was with me, and I knew that one day there is the man that God has ordained for me that would come and meet me. And it took a long while. It took longer than I would have preferred, but in all of it, it was just worth for me knowing that God is always there, and he's never late. He's always on time. When it feels like things are taking long, it's because there is something that perhaps he's doing, or something that he sees that we can't see. So in that, in reality, or in the African culture, they would say that if you're a certain age and you're not married, then it's definitely, you're off. What are you doing? Why shouldn't you be married? Or things like that. But I thank God, because in the time that I was single, I had plenty of time to serve the Lord. I had plenty of time to go and be a blessing to many others. I had plenty of time to develop myself spiritually whilst I did, my job, and to also raise my son, who eventually God also gave us the opportunity to have another little girl that we managed to get through adoption. So for me, it wasn't a time wasted. It wasn't a time of sitting down and waiting for the husband to appear, but it was a time of working on myself and developing myself and raising the children that God has blessed me with, praying and believing that God will bring someone of the like mind, someone like-minded, that we can do this together, because obviously the Bible says that two are better than one. So I always knew that my destination wasn't to be a single mother to the end, but I knew that God will bring along the right person that we can do this together with.
That's really beautiful. So it's a bit of hope for people out there who might be thinking, why is it taking so long? Have I missed the opportunity? And is it okay for me to call you Faith?
Yes, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. And that's fine. And so now you are from Uganda, is that right? Your heritage. Okay, we have some Ugandans in the chat. So if you're from Uganda, or if you have a connection with Uganda, just write UG. Write UG there in the chat. Just type UG, so you see how many Ugandans are in there. So how long did you say was the wait that you waited for? You said that it was taking a long time. How long was it from having your son to meeting Ben? What was that time period?
It was quite many years. I was single parented for, I think it's about 12 years. 12 years in one property, but maybe 13 in total.
Yes.
And in that time, though, I always say, for me personally, I felt like even though I was raising my son without a father present, there was a church community that was with me. And I always didn't feel like single parenting was really the right way to describe me, because I had a lot of support from the church and from my friends. And, I had a few people that were really helping me. So I guess in some ways it's a bit unfair, because for some, they're just on their own and having to do it, and they truly are single parenting. Whereas I had help, and I had God, and I was praying, and I'm believing that one day he'll bring the right person. Because the other thing would be as well, with the African culture, like I said, there's a tendency to put pressure on people to settle. And I don't know if it was stubbornness on my part, but I refused to settle unless I was 100% sure that that was God's will.
Wow.
So along the way, there were opportunities perhaps that, people came along, like, oh, let's settle down. You seem like the right person for me. But in my spirit, I knew that it wasn't right, and it wouldn't be right. And I knew that if I settled, it wouldn't be the right marriage. In my head, I always knew that when I get married, I wanted it to be for life. I didn't want to end up in a situation where I'm separated or divorced. Yes. And for me, it was worth waiting for the right person than to jump into a relationship and then get married and then realize that that wasn't the right relationship. So, it was a long while, but I believe that God was also working on me to prepare me for what was ahead, to prepare me to be a better mother, because now I've got more children, you know, the patience that comes with that, the challenges, the hardships that I had to go through. You know, it develops an empathy in me to be able to understand that actually you've always wanted more children. You've now got more children, but you need to learn and appreciate each and every one of them. They're different. And,
Yes.
you know, as a mom, you have to learn to relate to each one of, you know, our children and make sure that they understand that they're part of the family and they're special and they're valued and they're loved. So all those things, I feel like God was just preparing me in the years that, you know, leading up to the marriage.
That's really wonderful. And I'm glad you mentioned the thing about culture and settling. You were quite convicted that you knew that you weren't going to settle. What advice would you give to someone out there, let's say, who's a single parent, who is getting that pressure? How would you advise them to handle that?
I think for starters, I would have to say that for anyone who's looking to get married, you need to know what it is that you're looking for in a marriage. And you need to be clear in your mind the kind of partner that you are looking for or the person that you want to settle down with. Because I believe that sometimes life can throw people your way who are not meant to be yours. But if you don't know that they're not meant to be yours, you may end up settling with the wrong person. So I would say be clear in your mind of who you want to settle down with, and then pray and just trust God. You know, it sounds easy, but it is easy. You trust God and you put it out and you believe. Because every now and again, someone will say something, oh yeah, when are you going to get married? Just don't mind what people say. Because at the end of the day, if you do wait for the right person, they're definitely worth the years. If it took years, they're definitely worth it.
It'll
And
be
you will
sweeter.
thank God for it. Sorry?
It'll be sweeter in the end.
Exactly. God for it, because it's worth the wait.
So Ben, what was it that attracted you to faith?
Number one, she was a child of God. So the criteria was the same as Evelyn. The same. You know, for me, I didn't have like a template place per se that, you know, this consideration has to be fulfilled and that consideration and so on and so forth. If the person is a child of God and walks in the spiritual realm, yeah? So in other words, someone who's in the spirit, that's enough, okay? That supersedes everything else. What I design the person, you know, it's, yes, it's good, but it's not the be-it-all and end-all. So just meeting her in the house of God, and we'd known each other, I think, for about 2 years before we even started, you know, becoming, we started off again, just like Evelyn, like we started off as an acquaintance, then we became friends and we became an item. So yeah, God, pretty much, you know, God. You know, what I want is secondary, but the primary consideration is that person in the spirit. Okay, because if God is in control, yeah, everything will be fine. I went into marriage with Evelyn. Okay, we took our vows. Okay, and in there was a clause. So it's a covenant with God, right? So it says, "Until death do us part." And the day I sat in the church during the burial service, and they mentioned Evelyn's name, Mrs. Evelyn Linda Addy, I felt proud. I felt proud that I'd honored her in marriage. Okay, and by the grace of God, okay, that covenant that Evelyn and I entered into with God, okay, had been complied with. It says, "Until death do us part." Now I knelt down and prayed to God and said, "Father God, you choose my partner for me." Okay, and God chose Evelyn. How we our paths crossed was amazing. Okay, so if you allow God to choose, all will be well. And fast forward, I did likewise. Initially, I felt that I wasn't going to resettle again after what happened. But along the line, I was getting messages here and there, you know, and, you know, I felt that God was talking to me through those people that were giving me the messages that, I had to move on. Okay. So I knelt down and prayed. I said, Father God, if it be your will that I resettle, then you lead me to a person of your choice, just like you did Evelyn. And again, I found there was a day that our paths crossed twice in one, in a week.
3
I think
times.
3 times.
Oh, get it right. Don't get
I'll
into
let
trouble.
Faith, can you share that fact?
No, I think, yeah, it's important for us to realize that when we do pray, we do have a Father who listens,
Yeah.
and he knows the anxieties, and he knows the worry that we sometimes come with when we pray. So Ben prayed, he shared with me that, God should choose the right person for him if God wants him to settle. But I was praying because I felt like from the day I saw Ben come into the church, he stood out. The church has about maybe 300 plus congregation, but he stood out. And I remember seeing the children and I thought, oh, he must be married. So my head just thought, don't even go there. He's taken, just think. But then obviously, eventually I found out the tragic events that happened, but I also knew that he needed healing. He was quite hurt by, as you would be, by what had happened. So I was praying and I'm like, God, who's the right person? And his name kept coming back into my spirit from time to time, but we were friends and nothing more, but it just didn't. And I thought, he probably doesn't even want to settle after everything that's happened to him. So it was really weird. And then I started praying against him, like, God, if he's not your will for me, then please take him out of my thoughts so that I don't even consider him because he wasn't saying anything. So I
Yes.
pray that God, please take him out of my thoughts. I don't want to, literally praying the opposite of what I wanted. And then I think in that way, everywhere I turned, he was there. And I'm like, what is going on? So I think for me, that was then a confirmation that actually this is not just me wishing and willing something, but God is trying to show me something. And, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I think that once I realized that God was telling me that, I needed to move on. The biggest concern that I had, this is from a human standpoint, was my children being step-mothered. And I'd heard horror stories about children in that situation, And I said, I wasn't going to allow anyone to come around my children and put them through such an experience, okay? I'm like, well, okay. But I can be meticulous, in ensuring that I handpick someone that, will create a conducive environment for the children, given what they've, gone through. No child should go through, any ill treatment at the hands of any step parent. Okay.
Yes.
And I know sometimes, hypothetically speaking, sometimes even if the parent is a saint, the children struggle to relate to because of loyalty to their biological parents and things like that. So it was, again, through the prayers and everything, I found myself, encountering Faith 3 times. Faith just reminded me in a week, our paths crossed 3 times in 1 week. And that had never happened before. And that's how it started.
In 2 years.
Yeah, in 2 years, it's never happened before. Okay. Yeah. And that's how it started. And Faith had already, she'd begun some kind of a relationship with the children prior. And so it was good that it wasn't just, from that point.
So the children.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
they did.
As a person, I love children. So anywhere I am, if there are children there, chances are I'll probably strike a conversation or try and engage them in a way. So Vaughn and Vonda, they're so loving. They're so, so affectionate that we just, we got on really well.
Yeah.
We got on really well.
So one of the things that I did was I sat the children down because we are very engaging, and I asked them how they felt, about potentially having, a stepmom. And so, they were very candid about how they felt and everything about it and how they felt about Faith. And so, kind of preparing them to go on the journey, So you don't just impose your will on them. And so it was systematic, And I think that helped a lot, in the contact times that we had, trying to build the relationship slowly. And also ensuring that whoever was coming on board had a special understanding that the children had to be granted a special dispensation given what they had been through, okay? Because it's not, you can have a blended family with no bereavement issues. You're talking about, sort of a breakup by separation, okay? This was a breakup by, separation by bereavement, if you like, yeah?
Yes.
So the children, the children and I, come from a broken spirited background, if you like, because that's what it does to you. So the children, have been healing and, it's been ascending, okay? So you don't want them to go through an experience that will negate all of that positive, experience that you had.
Yeah.
So you have to then bring someone on board who will be an asset and add value to their lives, and the vice versa. So we can also be a blessing to that person, being Faith and her children. So yeah, so when Faith came on board, it was a great blessing. It's been a great blessing to us. Of course, after all has been said and done, where is it headed? Okay, so we pre-discussed a lot of things, about what her dreams and aspirations were, and mine as well, to see whether they align, and the relationship as a whole, the courtship period, and see how compatible we were, and so on and so forth, and if there was the objective at the end of it. So and along the line, further along, we spoke about marriage, and to see how Faith felt and how I felt and all the rest of it, and we discussed how our children were getting along, and kind of if there were any challenges, we bring it out and discuss with a hope to look at ways that we can fine tune, because you're never going to get a perfect situation in life, okay? But for me, the key word is tolerance and patience. Tolerance and patience. You will not meet someone who is 100% perfect, okay? There is no such thing like that. I am not perfect, neither is anyone, okay? Yes. And if ever you have any issues which relates to the children, relates to yourself, you have to discuss and seek to resolve them the best way possible, okay? So I've taken another covenant.
Go ahead. You've taken?
Yeah. I've taken another, covenant. I've entered into another covenant with God, okay? And prior to entering this covenant, my issue was I wouldn't want to get involved with someone who, if I feel that there are some indicators which, sort of kind of red flag the person as maybe, I'm not saying that the person is not good, okay? Because I have dated a person or two prior to Faith, okay? But I felt that, we were not meant for each other as a person, okay? Not that they were not good, we're perfect, but I believe that maybe they
wasn't the right fit.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I didn't think that they were the right fit, okay? Because as a person, I have a principle. I'd rather not go into a relationship if I feel that if I go into that relationship, years down the line, that relationship is not going to work. Because for me, when I take those vows, I believe it's a covenant with God, and until death will do us part. Like in Evelyn's case, we got married, stayed married right through till the end. And as a person, I want to say that I come from parents who got married, okay, and stayed married right through till the end. So my parents never got divorced, okay? And for me, that was a benchmark for me to see as a child growing up, which was beautiful, And so I thank the Almighty God that He has made it possible for me to be able to do that with Evelyn. And I know the same God who made it possible will make it possible for Faith and I, notwithstanding any challenges that we have, like any other couple, by the grace of God, we will stay together right through to the end.
Okay. Amen. And Faith, what would you say then are the key principles to take forward in a blended family? What would you advise people to hold true to themselves within a blended family?
Yeah, I think it's just to be, like I said, to be clear in mind as to who you feel the right person is for you. And once you think you found that person, then pray into it and let God confirm, because that's quite important. Before introducing anyone to children, I believe you have to be sure that the person you're about to introduce is the right person, because otherwise it can be quite confusing. Yeah, it could be
but then
quite
once you,
confusing.
that's right. Once you've gone through that stage and then you are in that relationship, what are the key principles that you would say for people who are already in a blended family? What principles should they carry forward?
One of the key things is communications, having open and honest conversations with each and every one of the members of the family, even if it means that, you know, you need to have a one-on-one, one-to-one with each of them to just try and get to the deeper issues, but to be open and honest with each other, because we're different. Things that impress us are different to those that, you know, they would vary from person to person. So I feel like honesty in communication is really, really key, and being able to respect one another and accepting that we're different. So, oh, we've lost.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Accepting that you're different.
So yeah, that we're different, and we're not always going to do everything the same way. We're not always going to like the same things, but we actually teach the children to value each other and to accept that our differences could be the things that actually make us who we are. We're not going to all trying to, you know, look the same or speak the same or behave the same, but we need to respect and value each and every one of us as a member of the family.
So just have a look at the screen, Faith, and I've got 2 last questions for you.
That's my son.
So Faith and Ben, question here for you is, now you're both from different cultures in terms of different countries in Africa. So Ben, you've got that heritage in Ghana, and Faith, you've got the heritage in Uganda. Having that cross-cultural relationship, is there anything that you would like to sort of share about that?
Again, to me, that fits into the framework that we've set as a family. You know, I'm from Uganda. I've lived in England most of my life, but, you know, I still have contacts. I've still got family. I've still, you know, most of my family are also here. And whilst I'm Ugandan, I'm also aware that I'm an African. And to me, that's a bigger thing than a regional, you know, thing. So our household, we've got quite a few different backgrounds of Africa within us. So we always have to remember that actually we are one family. We may have a bit of Ghana, a bit of Uganda, a bit of Zimbabwe or Nigeria or wherever, but we are one family. So just holding the values of our family as one, and again, carrying that respect and being able to communicate effectively. We do have, you know, I love cooking. So I spend a lot of time trying to cook various dishes so that the children can be familiar with the different kinds of dishes. And I'm not going to say, because I'm not from Ghana, I'm not going to try and cook fufu
Shito.
or, you know, shito. I actually love shito so much.
I love shito.
We will go and cook my favorite Ugandan food. Now, most Ugandans love matoke, but I'm one that loves sweet potato. And, you know,
lumonde.
Lumonde, thank you. I love lumonde. So I always make sure we do lumonde, we do chapati, we do pilau, everything that I know that they will enjoy, we bring it in. And the children are growing with the understanding that actually we are one family. We might be from different parts of Africa, but we are African and we are children of God, which is the most important thing. So that respect, our values are directly from the word of God. You know, for me, that comes first, and then the regional differences. Comes out.
Thank you. And Ben, same question to you. Cross culture, any sort of thing to help people who are dealing with the same thing or who have the same situation?
Okay, so I'll go back a bit into my history. So when Evelyn and I came together, I'm a Ga from the same country, but different tribes. I'm a Ga, and Evelyn was an Ashanti. Okay, so different tribes. However, Evelyn and I spoke English from day one, right through our relationship, right through to the end. Now, when the children were born, they came into speaking English with us right through. And then fast forward that on to now, along the line, when the children said to me, Dad, why haven't you trained us to speak the language, in the Ghanaian language, yours or mom's, okay? Because Evelyn and I maintained a system of cultural neutrality, okay? So our environment was, cultural neutral, and it was also gender neutral and so on and so forth. And so that has been brought to bear in this situation as well, where even though we're cross-cultural, we're cultural neutral, there's no dominant culture per se, at play here. But I just like to, just mention that there was some omissions here and there. Just going back a bit and just going off the subject, if you don't mind.
Okay.
That back in Ghana, when this happened, some of the key people that rallied around the children and I, and they'll come around, they'll cook different lovely, lovely dishes and make sure that, we're eating. Unfortunately, we couldn't really eat the food given what had happened. But they demonstrated a very strong sense of, care towards the children and I, and just driving some distances to come and bring this food was one of my sisters, Lydia. So she's now, she's Lydia Addy, but she's now Mrs. Lydia Ave. Yeah, she's flashing up now, saying hi to Faith.
Hello, Lydia.
Okay, so my sister Lydia cooked all this lovely food, and was always coming around and making sure that we had food to eat. And God bless her, and God bless my brother-in-law Felix, and my sister Mabel, who was the one going around doing all the arrangements for the funeral and the burial. And I had my brother Eddie, who he's based in the States, but he was in Ghana at the time. I couldn't drive, he was doing all the driving and driving me around, and that was amazing. And I just want to remember them for doing. And then also had a sister-in-law, Augusta, was married to my brother, my cousin, who's passed away now, Dave. She also drove all the way and brought us food, and I just want to mention her too. And God bless you all. Really acknowledge all your and appreciate all your love and care and support that you showed us back then. So Lydia, Mabel, Augusta, Eddie, Tom, everyone, Mina, these are all my siblings I'm mentioning now. God bless you all, Maxwell, and everyone who've been there for us. Okay. Very grateful. Thank you.
Well, God bless you, and God bless you both. And the final question, because we're going to wrap up now in 2 minutes, the final question now is, what are the plans for your future?
Ooh.
Any future plans?
Just keep serving God and serving God and serving God. Making God the center of our world, putting Him first in all that we do, and wherever God would take us, we'll go. We'll be happy to leave our comfort zone, to serve God wherever and do whatever He requires us to do.
That's really great. And just so that the viewers can know as well, so with this family, you've got Ben, you've got Faith, mum and dad, then you've got Vaughn and Vonda, who are your children, Mr. Addy. Then Faith, you've got Tendo, and then you also have an adopted daughter from Zimbabwe called Catherine.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's so much. I can just imagine the sounds in the house, especially now that everyone's at home and just So that I mean, it sounds like you've really built for yourselves the future that you want to have, and I'm sure everyone will join me in in just wishing you, not even wishing you, praying for you, praying all the best in all the decisions that you make for your future, all the best in the decisions that the children make as well, and just that walk in enjoying each other as a family. But thank you so, so much for taking the time to share your experiences and really just giving advice to people out there who maybe have gone through similar situations, or who knows, in the future might have to go through certain things. So hopefully they'll be able to take what you said in, to heart. And one thing that I've really gained from both of you is the importance of being grounded in your character and your values. With yourself, Faith, you knew in your mind that you weren't going to settle. There was something in you that said, you know what, I'm going to wait on God, and nothing's going to deter me from that, whether it's the pressures from the world, from society, from taboo, the image of, oh, well, you're a single mom, you better settle down so that people don't. Actually, you said, look, do you know what? I am going to wait for the right person. And for Mr. Addy yourself, it's a case of actually acknowledging that, yes, you've been through hardships in life. You were able to accept help with counseling and things like that. And you put your children first in a time where you yourself had to hold it together. And as a result of that, you've been able to come out of the other end and be an inspiration to other people who, might have to go through the same thing. And also being brave enough to share your experience. We're really, really grateful for that. Thank you so, so much to both of you, and all the best in the future. We've got a comment here, which I'm going to put up here before we close down. And it says here, great couple, and thanks for the advice. May God bless your marriage. So I hope you'll receive that prayer on your lives. And
thank you.
I'll before I log on, the final word, not the final word, but any last comments or statement that you'd like to make as a lasting statement to anyone listening?
Amen. For me, the one thing that I want to say is that if, like Ben said, if someone doesn't know God, they should find God. God is waiting for them to find him, and he's ready to receive any that will call out to him. And for anyone who knows God, as you go through the struggles, as you go through the life's trials and temptations, God is also with you. And in all things, we have to trust and to believe and to call on him. I wrote on my little notepad a verse that I felt I was thinking about today. If you permit me, I'd like to read it.
Please share.
I'm finished with it. And it's in Psalm 119 and verse 165. It says that great peace have they who love your law, and nothing shall offend them or make them stumble. So for those that love the law of God, peace is our fruit. Peace is the thing that God will give us. And in all situations, whether it's bereavement, whether it's, loss of loved ones, God's peace is always there for us to tap into. We just need to be in the right company of people that will help us to be able to at least try to understand or to pray through some of the challenges that life will throw at us. So for me, the word is find God. I think I could sum it all up as just find God. In whatever we do, we should find God.
Thank you. Anything for yourself? Any final words, Mr. Addy?
I think the message is love. Okay, unconditional love. So we should love each other, regardless of our differences, regardless of our cross-cultural differences. So whether you're a Caribbean person, whether you're a Black American, or you are, just love, regardless of where you're from. If you're from South Africa, or you're from Namibia, Zambia, wherever, we're one, united in love. God created all of us as one. In a family situation, love each other, love your brother, love your sister, love your cousins, love your mom, love everyone, because one day they may not be there and you will never get that chance to love them again. Okay, so please, please, please love each other. One of my greatest admirers is the first president of Ghana, Dr. Nkrumah, and I believe everybody knows about his Pan-Africanist credentials, and he sought to bring the whole of Africa together. He put the needs of Africa first before that of Ghana. Okay, and so that all had to do with being one and united. So please, let's all stay together as one, in love and respect for one another. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll let you get back to love and family and enjoying each other. But a virtual clap, round of applause from the people. I'll do that on their behalf in the chat. And thank you so much for your time. May God bless you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Let's Meet. I just felt that there was just so much to tap into that we had to allow Mr. Addy and Faith to be able to share their thoughts and pass on their wealth of knowledge. We'll be coming to you again this Thursday with Maria Tutti, and then again on the 16th of June with our special guest who will be talking about business, life, singlehood, and the like. So lots and lots of juicy things to come in the future. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you'll know whenever we're going to have another event. And again, share. So thank you once again for taking the time. Hopefully you've gained so much from this conversation. I certainly have. And let's just keep on sharing life stories and learning from each other. Keep on putting one foot ahead of the other until you get to the place where you hope to be and to your better self. So thank you once again. In the description below, again, is a link to a will pack. If you're looking into writing a will, then you can just click on that link to be able to get yourself one, because at any age, you never know what's going to happen. And so therefore, just like Ben said, be prepared, especially if you have children as well. I think it's really, really important. But thank you so much for everybody that came in today. Thank you so much for your time. Take care for now, and I will be seeing you next time on Let's Meet. Take care. Bye-bye.